Alright, so before you scroll past this thinking it's just another BTS edit, I need you to actually sit with this one for a second. Because what just happened at Samsung's biggest event of the year is way more calculated than anyone is giving it credit for, and almost nobody outside of hardcore fan circles has actually connected the dots yet. Let's set the scene. Just days ago, Samsung held Galaxy Unpacked in London, unveiling their brand new foldable lineup, the Z Fold 8, the Z Fold 8 Ultra, and the Z Flip 8. Massive event. Global press. The face of the entire campaign leading up to it was J-Hope, who Samsung had teased walking through London streets in this cinematic ad, hyping up the reveal. That part, people noticed. That part got headlines. But here's what almost slipped under the radar completely, and honestly, once you hear it, you're going to realize it's the real story. Buried inside the actual phone itself, inside the software, inside the features Samsung chose to demo live on stage to introduce their new AI camera tools, was something specifically built around Jimin. Not just a photo of him. Not just a campaign poster. An actual feature. Korean media outlet Money Today, covering the unveiling, described this new foldable as basically the second coming of the Idol phone, because Samsung showcased something they're calling a personalized fan cam tool. Here's how it works. If you're watching a video of a group performance, say a BTS stage, the AI can isolate one member out of the whole group, track them through the entire performance, and generate a clean, personalized fan cam of just that one person. Cropped exactly how you want it, ready to post straight to social media. And the specific example Samsung chose to demo this feature with, live, in front of the entire world, was Jimin. Now stop and actually think about what that means for a second, because this is the part everyone's skipping past. Samsung didn't just put Jimin's face on a billboard this time. They built an entire piece of flagship AI technology and chose his stage presence as the literal example case to prove that the technology works. Out of every idol, every performer, every possible clip they could have used to showcase this brand new camera feature to the entire planet, they picked him specifically. So let's actually break down why that choice matters, because it is not random, and once you understand how these companies think, it becomes almost impossible to unsee. First, think about who fan cams are actually made for. Fan cams exist because fans want to isolate their favorite member out of a group performance and watch them specifically. It's one of the most obsessive, most repeated behaviors in the entire K-pop fan ecosystem. People spend hours doing this manually, scrubbing through footage, cropping clips by hand, just to get 30 seconds of their bias doing choreography. Samsung essentially looked at that behavior, an entire fan culture built around manually creating personalized highlight clips, and said, what if the phone just did that automatically? That's not a marketing gimmick. That's a company studying an actual fan obsession and turning it directly into a hardware selling point. And this is where the Jimin choice gets really interesting. Out of the entire group, he is consistently the member whose individual fan cams generate some of the most explosive engagement online. If you've spent any time in that corner of the internet, you already know this instinctively even if you've never thought about why. Samsung's marketing and product teams absolutely have the analytics to know this too. So when they needed a single example to prove their new AI feature works, and works impressively, they didn't pick a random member. They picked the one whose isolated stage presence already has a proven track record of stopping people mid-scroll. Now layer in everything else Samsung has quietly built with him specifically over the past few years, separate from this one moment. He appeared front and center in the Galaxy S24 Ultra campaign back in 2024, alongside RM and Suga, at a moment when Samsung was pushing that phone as their answer to Apple's best. Outside of Samsung entirely, Dior made him their global ambassador. Tiffany & Co. brought him on as a house ambassador for their jewelry lines. These are companies that do not casually hand out ambassadorships. Luxury houses protect their image obsessively, and they chose him specifically because his public image lines up with exactly what they're trying to sell: elegance, refinement, a kind of quiet, timeless appeal. So when Samsung needs to sell a flagship device, a device that isn't just competing on specs anymore because every flagship phone at this point takes a great photo, they're not really selling hardware. They're selling a feeling. They're selling the idea that this device is part of a premium, aspirational lifestyle. And by wrapping their new AI feature around Jimin specifically, they get to quietly borrow all of that luxury association, all of that Dior and Tiffany credibility, and attach it directly to a mass-market foldable phone, without ever having to build that reputation themselves. This is one of the oldest tricks in advertising, and it's called borrowed prestige. Instead of spending years building your own brand credibility from scratch, you attach yourself to someone or something that already has it, and some of that credibility transfers over just by association. Samsung isn't building Jimin's fame. They're renting it strategically at the exact moment it benefits them the most. And the timing here is not a coincidence either. This all landed during a stretch where BTS members have been stepping back into the public eye following their military service, a period where literally any public appearance from any member sends fan communities into an absolute frenzy online. That kind of organic, uncontrollable global attention is something brands spend enormous marketing budgets trying to manufacture and usually fail to replicate. Samsung didn't have to manufacture it here. They just had to be smart enough to be standing there, camera rolling, feature ready to demo, exactly when that attention was already at its peak. There's also a deeper psychological layer to all of this that's worth sitting with. When a fan sees their favorite artist connected to a piece of technology, especially technology that is literally built to celebrate that artist's individual presence within the group, it creates something beyond a normal ad reaction. It creates a sense of personal connection to the product itself. Buying the phone stops feeling like just buying a phone. It starts feeling like buying into a small piece of that connection. That is an incredibly powerful emotional lever, and it is being pulled here with a level of precision that most casual observers are never going to consciously register, even while they're feeling its effects. Zoom out even further, and this whole moment says something much bigger about where global influence actually sits right now. A huge chunk of the most emotionally powerful, most commercially valuable star power on the planet in 2026 isn't coming out of Hollywood anymore. It's coming out of Seoul. And Samsung, a company that started building this specific relationship with BTS all the way back in 2020 with the Galaxy S20 BTS edition, has spent years quietly deepening this partnership, while a lot of other global brands were still treating K-pop like a passing trend. That head start is exactly why Samsung isn't scrambling to catch up right now. They built this pipeline early, and this FanCam feature is just the latest, most technically impressive payoff of a bet they placed years ago. So when you put it all together, the fact that this wasn't random members selected for a phone feature demo, the borrowed prestige from years of luxury brand ambassadorships, the perfectly timed wave of renewed public attention, and the psychological pull fans feel toward products connected to the people they admire, you start to see this for what it really is. Not a coincidence. Not a small marketing footnote buried in a bigger product launch. A calculated, multi-year strategic bet that just quietly played out on a global stage, in front of millions of people who mostly didn't even realize what they were watching. And if this pattern holds, and every signal says it will, do not be surprised to see this exact playbook repeated at the next major Galaxy launch. Because once a strategy proves it can move this much attention this efficiently, companies do not walk away from it. They double down harder every single time. So the next time you see a campaign like this and think it's just a celebrity slapped on an ad, remember everything we just walked through. Because there is an entire layer of strategy sitting underneath that 30-second clip that most people scroll straight past without ever noticing. If this actually changed how you're going to look at these campaigns from now on, let me know in the comments, because there is a lot more happening behind the scenes of these partnerships than people realize, and I've got more of these breakdowns coming.